All right. Well, welcome everybody. Today is day 4 of our 7-day Sell More Art Challenge. And we wanted to set up this live so that we can answer your questions, so that we can help pull you along. And I really want to motivate you to take action today, because today is the day to start really taking action. And before I bring my business partner, Oliver, on with us, before I hand the control of this meeting over to him, I was thinking about how important action is and how hard it can be for us to take action because of the fear of rejection, because of the fear of like not knowing the right thing to say to people when we're trying to show them our art and sell them our art and trying to get them to take action. And that's where we get stuck. And so the best way to get unstuck with taking action is to just take the flippin' action. And the more people you reach out to, the better opportunity you have to sell your art and to get reaction to your art and to impact people with your art. And I'm going to share with you something that I just recently has been going through with my own art. And for me, my art is my books. And the book that I am releasing in a couple months, it's a memoir called COVID, a Love Story. And it's a true story about when my husband was dying from COVID. And spoiler alert, he survives. But it's a 1-year period of time. Well, my dream, and I want you to listen to this because this is really important. You have to know what your dream is, right? What you want. And um, so for me, my dream for this piece of art is to have this book become an international bestseller. And I want to sell 100,000 copies before the year is out. And I want to sell 3 million copies in the next 3 years. So my dream is also that this story will impact people in a really positive way by showing them how to get through a really horrible time with confidence, faith, and just believing and surrendering. So there's a lot of messages in my book that I know are going to help people. Well, so I'm getting to the action part. I found myself stressing over this one thing that I had to do with my book, and that is to send it to pre-readers, people who will read it before it's dropped, to get feedback and also to get endorsements to put in the book. Like an endorsement is, oh, this, somebody would write a two sentence endorsement for my book. Okay, so it was a difficult action for me to take because I had to send my art to people. I had to ask them to look at it. I had to ask them to read some of it and then to respond. Well, I sent it out to about 12 people. And guess how many people responded back? One. One. And these are people I know. Okay. Now, I think the other people will eventually get around to it. But here's the thing. The person that responded, and not only responded, but gave me this amazing feedback that is helping me make the story better by making a few little tweaks to it, was the most unlikely person to respond. And it's a somewhat of a well-known author that just, it was a last minute, okay, I'm just going to send one more, and I'm going to send it to this guy. So the point of this share is that you have to send your art out to a lot of people. So if you are trying to sell your art by text, and those of you who are part of our mastermind, you know what I'm talking about because we just did a session about this the other day, how to sell art through text on your phone or by email. If you have a new piece of art and you want to send a picture of it to people who bought from you in the past or people who showed interest in the past, don't just send it to one or two people. You have to send it to 10, 15, 20 people, and you might get one or two or three responses, and you might sell it to one person, or you might get, the more you put out, the more action you take, the greater your results are going to be. And even if you're nervous about it and you're afraid, what are these people going to think? Um, people are people going to like my art? Are they going to think I'm bugging them with my art? You're not bugging people. You're not bugging people. Some people are flattered. So the man that responded, the one person that actually read my book and responded to me, he said to me, I'm flattered that you sent this to me and that you asked me to look at it. And I thought, wow. And here I was afraid to send it to him. So you don't know, you can't assume that you're bugging people, that they're bothered by it. I want you to flip that script in your mind and think, oh, these people are going to feel good that I thought of them. So I'm going to be a little more specific now. For those of you who have sold art in the past, now some of you are brand new to selling. So, but if you've sold in the past, you have people who have bought from you, or if you have people who have shown interest, today your action could be to text or email or direct message these people, somehow send them a message, however you can reach them. And you say, hey, I have some art that I think you might be interested in based on our past conversation or based on what you bought from me before. And even if you think they might have seen it on your feed or on your posts or whatever, do this anyway. Send it to them and ask, would you like me to send you a photo of it? And let them respond. Some people won't respond. Some people will say, yeah, sure, send it. And then when they respond, send them photos of your art and wait for them to feedback and say, oh, that's lovely, or thank you, or whatever. And then ask them, would you be interested in bringing this piece of art into your home? And this is the action that leads to sales. Now, you have to understand not everybody's going to buy. This doesn't work 100% of the time, but that's okay. It works a certain percentage of the time. And if you do nothing, it doesn't work 100% of the time if you do nothing. So you have to take the action. All right, and with that, I'm going to bring Oliver on. Oliver, do you want to talk about the challenge thus far and
Yeah.
yeah, take over.
So, yeah, exactly. So we had a lot of brainstorming, a lot of thinking, which is important. And I think most of the artists, they like doing these things. But then when it comes to the action, we get stuck, we get paralyzed, we get blocked. And the funny story is actually, I was so painfully shy. I couldn't talk to a single person. And before I actually did art, I wanted to become a photographer. So I was always creative. And back then, there was like, I believe in 2016, I thought I want to become a photographer. And I went to a different place, like I moved away from my city to a different city with the hope that, if I go to this city, I'm going to make it. The problem was I couldn't talk to a single person. So I was constantly just in this cycle of being stuck and thinking, trying, working on my photos and like doing all the mind work in a way. And don't misunderstand me, the mind work is important, but it needs to always be backed up with action. Otherwise you're stuck in this cycle. You're just in your mind. And so I couldn't talk to a single person. I couldn't approach anyone. And of course, I didn't make any money. I mean, I made a little bit of money from people that actually came to me, but I couldn't make a living with it. And then I needed to move back to my mom, get a job and all of this stuff, right? It was very actually painful experience, but I learned so much from it. And I learned that I need to get better in business. And business is most of the time actually, let's say it like this. It's kind of sales. I know we don't like this word. And there are many ways of how we can actually sell our art in a non-salesy way, right? We don't need to be pushy salespeople, but what it means is like we need to talk to people. We need to tell them, hey, we have something to offer. You know, I'm an artist. I have art. You know, this is the kind of art that I create. And would you be interested? If we really simplify everything, right? That's the point you want to get to as many times as possible, because the more you ask people like, hey, would you be interested in this piece? Would you want to take this painting home? Like the more you can actually ask these questions, the more chances you will have to, in the end, sell your art, right? So it's very, very important to take that kind of action. And when we feel blocked, taking the action can actually unblock us. But sometimes we think we need more knowledge, we need more this, our art needs to get better. We don't have the right words to send the message yet. You know, we just think we need more stuff, more knowledge. We're not good enough yet. And so we keep being in this cycle of being stuck and not taking action, but actually taking the action, even though it's not perfect, because we never will be perfect. And I actually learned this from very successful business people. That's, I think, why I started getting good at selling my art, because I learned a lot from them. And they always said, you know, getting it done is better than perfect, or getting it done beats perfect every single time, right? So just taking the action will get you out of this cycle of being stuck, and you will start feeling also so much better. It's almost like you are afraid of something, right? You're afraid of getting rejected. You're afraid of people not liking you. You're afraid of being salesy. And you actually give it energy. You give this fear more energy, and it becomes bigger by giving into that fear through not taking action, right? So the fear becomes bigger and bigger in your mind, and it gets harder and harder to take action, versus you just face the fear and you take the action anyways, and then the fear completely dissipates. You know, it disappears. And then that's where you get your results, and that's when you start selling your art.
Love it. So, few key things. You said you needed to get better at business, and that was a decision that you made. And business is being good at business is really just practice. Believe it or not, I
Mhm.
used to be so shy, I couldn't talk to people. I know you can't even imagine me being shy. And you used the word painful, Oliver, and it is painful. It being afraid to reach out to people, to talk to people, to share what you do is painful, because you do what you do to impact the world. That's why you're here. And it's not like you have to sell $1 million worth of art to make to live out your purpose on life. But you are here to share what you do. And the reason you're here right now, today, at this very moment, is because you have this desire to sell your art. And just know this, the more people you talk to about it, the more people you touch, the more you're going to sell. So, all right, I'm going to hit a couple things in the chat. Valerie asked, what do you do if you don't have the contact info for past art buyers because they bought fruit through galleries and museums? Well, um, I don't know. There's no way to find out who those people are, because most galleries won't tell you. And that's a big problem I have with art galleries. Artists need to know who buys their art for so many reasons. Your future art museum show, you need to know who bought your art. So, I don't really know a way to get around that other than to work with galleries that are willing to share that information with you. Not all of them are, most of them are not. I think if you're working with museums, they will, because they're not uh, selfish with the information like most galleries are. Stephanie said, I'm still determining where they actually are that I can connect in a practical manner. So I want to say, if you think to yourself, I don't know where to start with people, you do have ideas. The ideas are there. If you've been doing the challenge for the last 3 days, you have generated ideas. Go to the ideas that you wrote down and trust what came to you. It's the worry and the fear that holds you back and that makes you keep thinking you don't know what to do. And so, Stephanie, I would say look at the things that you wrote down and start there. Lucy said, my buyers have been from sales platforms, so contacting them would break GDPR legislation. I suppose I would need to start finding customers from scratch again. So I don't know if you mean like Etsy. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that legislation, but I am of the strong belief that your customers should be your customers. And that's why we stopped selling Drew's art on TikTok. We had a TikTok shop through the TikTok platform, and they wouldn't let us have the customers' names and emails. And I said, that's it. We're not selling on TikTok anymore. And I pulled it off of there because there are customers. I don't want somebody else keeping our customers' information. I want that information. So that's something that you have to decide for yourself. Are they your customers or do those customers belong to other people? And I have one more thing to add to that. If you're selling through a platform that you have to ship to the customer, but you're not allowed to keep the customer's information, maybe a workaround is to include like a postcard when you ship the item to them that says something like, get a free gift if you sign up for my newsletter list or something like that. Like try to capture them that way. Denise asked the question, let's see, asking the question, would you like to buy this piece? So if that question is hard for you to ask, would you like to buy this piece? Let's rephrase the question. Let's not use the word buy, and let's rephrase the question to, would you like to bring this piece into your home? And then if they respond yes, then say, okay, here's the steps. Here's the next step is for me to send you an invoice or however you collect payment, for you to send payment, send me your shipping address and I'll get that off to you. So close the deal with a payment after that. And with practice, this stuff gets easier for those of you who are new to this. Everything gets easier with practice. Oh, there's a second part to this question Denise asked. With emails, I feel that after sending a certain email, I may be bugging the person. So stop worrying about bugging people and shift that thought to, I'm the one selling this. They're the customer. It's my responsibility to make it easy for them to buy. So if you're not sending them reminders and follow-ups, you're making it hard for them to buy. Make it easy. That's your duty as the artist and the person selling. It's your duty. Think of yourself as a high value provider. A high value provider holds their customer's hand through the buying process and makes it easy for them. Okay, and Oliver put a link to day 4 of the challenge. Well, and Oliver, remember now, we have 2 groups of people on this live call right now. We have our private mastermind group, and then we have our public free group. So if you're in the private mastermind group, you're going to go to that post there. And if you're not in the private mastermind group, then you will go to the post in the free group. And if you want to join the private mastermind group, Oliver, if you don't mind putting a link for them to join. Okay, I'm looking at more questions. Wendy Schaefer said, there's a fear of bothering or interrupting people's lives. I am sensitive to people's wait a minute, life problems, and it tends to bring me down, so I avoid it. Well, what if you're not bothering them? What if you're giving them relief, momentary relief from their problems with your art? Isn't that what your art does? Isn't that what art does? I want you to sit with that thought for a moment. So all of you that are listening right now, I want you to play along with me for a minute. Indulge me, please. Put both hands on your heart, okay? And just take a breath in. And the reason I'm asking you to do that is to bring you to this present moment. Clear your mind of all the things we talked about. Just let all that go. And let's just come up with a fresh thought in your mind. And I want you to think for a moment how your art brings joy to someone's moment in their day when they look at it. So I just got a vision in my mind of Amanda's art. Amanda, I don't know if you're here. I can't see all the participants. But I see Amanda's art in my Instagram feed almost every day. And something about her art brings me joy for a moment. Always, always brings me joy. And I can say that about all of you. And whatever is bothering me in that moment, when I see her art pop up, I'm taken away from my worries. So how does your art do that? So I want you to see in your mind right now, someone looking at your art and being transported into that world that your art has created for them. That's what it does. There's a woman that started buying art from us years ago, and she started with one piece and then two, and she kept buying Drew's art prints, but she was spending all this money. And after she bought like 10 pieces of art, I actually called her on the phone because she was buying it online. We didn't have a relationship with this woman. It was just online sales. And I called her and I said, where are you putting all this art? And by the way, thank you. And she said, it's for my brother. He was in a bad accident and he's paralyzed from the neck down. And he almost never leaves his room. And we found when we bought the first piece of art and hung it for him, it brought him so much joy. And that's what we've been doing with the art, filling his room with joy, because it's the only joy he has in life is transporting himself into this world that Drew has painted. That's a very extreme example, but very, very true and very real. So no more bothering or interrupting people. Your art is bringing people into your world. And your world is very special. That's why you're an artist. You are not like everybody else. You're very different. Your vision takes us to another world. All right, Will says time and energy. All right, Will, I'm glad you brought this up. Will said, Maria, you're helping family and Drew a lot. I'm guessing you helped a lot more when he was in recovery. Yeah, I did everything. He was recovering. And Will said, staying healthy is often my priority. I need to make space for art creation, marketing, and sales. So, yes, I know these things take time, but you've got this desire to get your art out there. Make time for it. Make time to get it out there. Bring your own dream to life by making time for it. You don't have to do it full time. Um, but reaching out to people doesn't take that much time. It's getting yourself to take the action that's the time. Denise asked, how do you authentically step into a space mentioned in your Where Are Your Buyers without appearing like you're stalking people? Glad you asked that. You start with, so let's say you're going to reach people through a Facebook group. Like, I'll make up an example. Drew has this art that's inspired by the Grateful Dead. And this one art piece is called Grateful Tubes. And let's say I want to go into a Grateful Dead Facebook group. I'm not just going to show up and start posting art in there. That would be kind of inappropriate and stalkish. What you do is you go in there and you start, it's like hanging out at a party. You're showing up at a party. You don't walk up to the first person and say, hey, buy my art. You walk up and say, hey, how are you? You leave comments on other people's posts. You develop relationships with people. You pay attention to what other people are sharing. It's a give and take. And then after you've shown interest in other people's posts there, then you can do a post with sharing your art. And by the way, the post is never, hey, buy my art. The post is, I love the Grateful Dead, and this one song inspired this painting. And, I'm making this as an example, but you can use this example with other things. That's how you do it. Okay, let's see. I'm looking at other comments here. Jamie said, I'm not comfortable in social media. You're helping me realize I just need to engage with people more, not being salesy. Yes, exactly. Selling art is all about relationships. And even if you're shy and introverted, you can still tell yourself to care about other people because it's not about you. When you stop making it about you, that's when everything shifts. That's how I got over the fear of public speaking. I stopped making it about what do they think of me? How do I look? How do I sound? And I started making it about what do they need? How can I help them? So it's a big shift. How many times a week suggest posting? Well, if you look at the artists that are really successful, they post every day. I've been hounding my husband to do this, and he's not very good at it. And I tell him, look at your friend Chris Dyer. He's got, I don't know how many 100,000 million followers. I don't know how many, a lot. He posts multiple times a day, and he's not just posting his art, he's posting other things about other people and how they enjoy his art. And he's also, every Sunday, he does a talk about whatever's on his mind. And people love that. So share what you know. Share what you want to share. Share what's important to you. And I can't believe we've been doing this for 30 minutes now. I don't know where the 30 minutes went because I wanted to end at 30 minutes, but I feel like we have more things to cover. So, and Oliver, if you want to jump in at any time, feel free. Um, Oliver, do you want to share? So you wrote in the comments, I reframed my sales calls to call them connection calls. Do you want to talk about that for a minute or two? And before I stop talking, I want to invite all of you, anything else that you have an objection to or trouble with, pop it in the chat because I want to address all of them. And if I missed anything, add it back in because sometimes I miss things. Oliver?
Okay, yeah. So there are actually two things. I also wrote that, this oftentimes I had the problem too of feeling like I annoy people, I bother them, I'm salesy. But I think the focus is, like you said, is like, oh, we feel like we're taking something away from them. So we don't realize what value we bring with the art. So that's why we feel like this. So what helped me a lot is really like similar to the exercise we did now, is journal on my purpose as an artist. Like instead of me just painting for enjoyment and wanting to make money, I journaled on my purpose beyond making money, beyond selling. Like why am I doing this? What is the impact I want to do in the world with my art? Like what's the benefit of my art to these people? Like how does it make them feel? Like I was just like really journaling. And every time I did that, I felt so fired up. And it made it so much easier for me to take massive action and reach out to people because now I'm not just an artist trying to sell something and in a way like taking away something from them because that was my focus before. Then it started more feeling like I'm an artist with a purpose and I'm actually impacting people's lives. So I wasn't afraid of bothering people anymore. I felt, yeah, I was really connected to my purpose and as an artist, and that helped me so much. So I recommend everyone that still feels like, maybe I bother people or I'm sleazy, salesy, all of these. If you have any of these thoughts or worries, I think the solution to that is really like journal on your purpose. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I reframe my calls because I jump with people on calls. That was for me the most successful thing. I also sold some art per text only, but sales call, like, no, that's not sales call. Like the connection calls, that's how I reframed them. They always led to more sales. And I reframed them because, yeah, in the end of the day, all selling really is. And to be honest, yeah, having this thought that I jump now on a sales call with someone made me feel a bit uncomfortable, right? So when I started reframing that to connection calls, I actually started enjoying them way more and I showed up differently on the calls. And funny thing is, like, I noticed that when people felt connected to me, when I also felt connected to them, we had some kind of connection, we had similar interests, and we had a great conversation. And also they usually after that they also felt more connected to my art, and that's how people ended up buying, right? So it never really felt like sales. So I think we can reframe a lot of things, right? And it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Jamie said, I'm not comfortable in social media. You're helping me realize that I need to engage with people more, not being salesy. How many times a week do you suggest posting? Wait a minute, did I already read that one? No. I already answered half of that. But one other thing I want to say, the more you do something, the more comfortable you get doing it. And the great thing about social media is it gives you practice with sharing things without putting yourself too much on the line. And when I was hired to go speak at Furman University years ago, I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be on stage and there's going to be, 300 people there. And I was so afraid. And here's what I did. I thought, okay, I'm going to do an Instagram live talking about different topics every day before I give that talk to practice. And I did, and it was amazing. It helped me feel comfortable. I was still nervous when I got on that stage, but I was way less nervous because I had worked it out on social media. So social media is like an amazing way to practice talking to people without really talking to people. Okay, and one other thing I wanted to say, let's see. Okay, here's what I wanted to do. I want to invite you all to do a little writing exercise right now before we end this. And I'm going to have you write down two things, okay? So get your pen and paper, and I would prefer that you use pen on paper because pen on paper pulls more from your imagination than if you're typing on a digital device, okay? So the first thing I want you to write down right now is I want you to write down how you want someone to feel when they've acquired a piece of your art. How do you want them to feel? And how do you want that art to have impacted them? Write that down. And for those of you who might be having trouble with this, it could be I want it to brighten their day. Could be I want it to inspire them to care about a cause that I care about. I want it to make them laugh. I want it to make their living room look beautiful. Whatever it is, whatever your art does. And this is the impact. And it doesn't have to be serious. It could just be simple. And now the second thing I want you to write down, I want you to write down one method you are going to practice reaching people with your art. So how will you reach out? Are you going to do it with a phone call, with a text, with an email? Are you going to do it through social media? How are you going to do that today? Sometimes when we, well, not sometimes, all the time, before we take an action, if we visualize what we want that action to look like when it's completed, and then we take the action, it brings it to life. And going back to the story I told you earlier about that man that read my book and gave me feedback on it, and very helpful feedback. The feedback he gave me that inspired changes, little changes I'm going to make to my book before it goes to print, I believe is what is going to make my book an international bestseller. And how crazy is that? Like, that the universe delivered what I've been envisioning every day for the last year and a half as I was writing that book. I've been visualizing my book selling millions of copies, but it wasn't just right. And now it will be. And it's amazing when you get clear on what you want, how that does get delivered to you in big ways and little ways. All right, I'm going to see if there's anything else in the chat to address. Brad asked, what is one single social media platform that's the best to sell art? I'm going to say the best one is the one that you enjoy the most. So for me, it's Instagram. I love Instagram. I'm an Instagram addict. For some artists, Pinterest is amazing, but I've never liked Pinterest. But Pinterest is great. For some people, LinkedIn does really, really well. It hasn't worked for me, but I know artists that it works for. So figure out what feels best to you. And Amy asked, should we just do videos on Instagram or images work? Whatever you feel inspired to do. I like videos. I like seeing artists talk about the art while they're showing the art. Actually, I find that our advertising that we do with Drew, that does better than still photos. And I think it's because people like to look at the art and feel like they know the artist and what went into the thinking behind the art. That's been my experience. Jill said she's going to reach out to her past coaching instructor to let him know what progress she's made and ask if he wants to see what she's working on at the moment. Exactly, Jill, that's what I'm talking about. So yes, and don't just send it to one person, reach out to several people. Start with one and then grow. Oliver said reels work the best or carousels as well, which means multiple photos. Okay, so I hope that this was really helpful. For those of you who are not in the mastermind, the private mastermind, and you really want to have your hand held through the art business, I recommend checking it out and joining us. Many of you, actually, most of you on this call are in the mastermind. And it just goes to show when you really invest in yourself and you show up, that's when you get the results. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. Oliver, thank you for being my partner and for running this whole challenge. By the way, the challenge was all Oliver's idea. He's really good at getting things done. And Oliver, I appreciate you, and I know everybody does appreciate you because you are so wise at such a young age. If I was as smart as you when I was your age, Lord only knows where I'd be right now. I'd be on a yacht in the Caribbean or something like that. I don't know. But okay, thank you all, and we'll put the replay up. Have a very productive day, and we will see you in the group, in the post. I want to see all of your responses in the post today. Bye.